Remember last week? I read outside. It was so nice. A little bit colder today, but that's okay. Our warm weather's coming back. So, tomorrow is Mother's Day. I hope you all spoil your moms. Rub her back, rub her feet, give her a head massage. Put lotion on her arms. Oh man, that feels so good. Give her a head massage. All kinds of ideas. I gotta give my kids these ideas. So, anyway, I am going to read the stories then for tomorrow, okay? And I hope you guys all got your little gift together for your moms too, okay? Ruth goes with Naomi. A famine spread throughout all the land of Judah. Because there was so little rain, the people could not raise enough food to eat. When the word came that there was food in the country of Moab, Elimelech moved there with his wife and 2 sons. They decided to stay in Moab until the famine was over. The family was so glad to have enough food to eat, but life was very different in a heathen land. Here, many people had never, ever heard about the true God. They worshipped an idol called Chemosh. I'm sorry. Because they worshipped Chemosh with fire, he was sometimes called a fire god. His image was made of brass, and sacrifices were burned in his outstretched brass arms. So they're not used to this because their God is God, the true God. Even though heathen surrounded Elimelech and Naomi, they still worshipped the one true God. They kept true to God. They taught their sons to worship God too. Then Elimelech died. Oh, how much Naomi and her 2 sons missed him. Now Mahlon and Chilion cared for their mother. Those are her sons. Later, Mahlon and Chilion married and had homes of their own. Their wives' names were Ruth and Orpah, and they were Moabite girls. So instead of teaching her young husband to serve Chemosh, the fire god, Ruth learned to serve the true God. Things went well with Naomi, her sons, and their wives for about 10 years. So things went good then for about 10 years, okay? Then both Mahlon and Chilion died. Oh, how sad and lonely Naomi felt. She was not able to care for herself. And when she learned that Bethlehem was no longer suffering from famine, well, she decided that she would return to her own people because she is so lonely among all these Moabites, and they're in this heathen land where they don't even worship the God she worships. So, famine's over, she's going to go back to Bethlehem. Both Ruth and Orpah loved their mother-in-law, Naomi. They wanted to go with her, so Naomi agreed that they could go part of the way. After the 3 had walked some distance, Naomi told her daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you. Go to your mother's house, and may the Lord be as good to you as you have been to me and my 2 sons. May the Lord help each of you to find a good husband." And then she kissed them. Through their tears, now they're so sad. They love their mother-in-law. What a good Mother's Day story. And now they're crying because they want to go with her. Naomi answered, "Please go back, my daughters. I do not have more sons for you to marry, and I am too old to get a husband to care for us. Please go back." Once Naomi had been a stranger in Moab. She knew how it felt to live in a strange land. And she didn't want that for her daughter-in-laws. She thought the girls would be happier if they stayed among their own people. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, and she started back to Moab. But Ruth did not want to return to Moab. Naomi told Ruth, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. You should do the same." "Oh, do not make me leave you," Ruth begged. "I want to go wherever you go. I want to live wherever you live. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God." That is wonderful, you guys. Now, Naomi realized how much Ruth wanted to go with her. Naomi did not say any more about returning to Moab. Instead, Naomi and Ruth walked on and on over the hills and through the valleys, and at last they came to Bethlehem, where Naomi had lived with her husband and 2 little boys before Moab. What a good story. What love those girls had for their mother-in-law. All right, and for the true God. Okay, so we're going to also read Ruth Gleans in Boaz Fields. How glad Naomi's friends were to see her again. They noticed how much older she looked, and they knew by the lines on her face that she had suffered trouble and sorrow. They could hardly believe this was the same Naomi that had left Bethlehem during the famine. They even asked one another, "Is this really Naomi? She looks so different." She told her friends, "Do not call me Naomi now, but call me Mara instead, because I have lost my husband and sons. Life has become bitter for me." Naomi meant pleasant, and Mara meant bitter. She wanted to change her name because her happiness had been changed to sorrow. The friends wanted to know what Naomi planned to do. Naomi told them about Ruth, her daughter-in-law, who had returned from Moab with her. The 2 would live together. It was harvest time in Bethlehem, and the grain was ripe in the fields. The reapers were busy cutting the grain and binding it into bundles. This was the custom among the Israelites. The reapers left some stalks of grain for the poor to gather up. When Ruth heard of this custom, she asked Naomi, "Oh, let me go to the fields and glean from the grain that is left." "Go, my daughter," Naomi answered. It just so happened that Ruth began to glean in the field of a very rich man named Boaz. When he came to see how his servants were getting along with the reaping, he saw a strange young woman picking up the grain that had been dropped. "Who is she?" he asked. The overseer explained, "Well, she is the Moabite maiden who came back with Naomi. She asked permission to glean after the reapers. Ever since, she has worked steadily without resting." So Ruth sounds like a very hard worker. Boaz watched as Ruth worked patiently among the people who were strange to her. He knew she was trying to find food for Naomi and herself. No wonder Boaz admired this beautiful, young, hard-working woman who is respecting her mother-in-law. She chose to go with her mother-in-law than to go back to her mom. She chose to go with Naomi, who has God in her life. Ruth is on a very good path, isn't she? Boaz told Ruth, "Young woman, do not go to another field to glean, but work with my maidens here. When you are thirsty, you may get a drink from the water jars." Oh, Ruth was very thankful for his kindness. She bowed her head and asked, "Why are you so kind to me, a foreigner?" "I have heard about your kindness to your mother-in-law since your husband died," Boaz said. "I have heard how you left your own people and came to a people who are strange to you. May the Lord reward you with many blessings because you trust in him." Ruth's heart was so warmed by these kind words. When mealtime came, Boaz invited Ruth to eat lunch with his servants. "Treat her kindly and be sure to leave some grain for her to gather," he told his workers. By evening, Ruth had a bushel of grain. She carried it to Naomi. Ruth had even saved part of her lunch for Naomi. Oh, Naomi was surprised to see so much grain. "Where did you glean today?" she asked. Ruth told about Boaz and his kindness, and Naomi said, "Boaz is one of my husband's relatives. It is good that you are working in his fields." And all during the harvest, Ruth gleaned grain from Boaz Fields. What a great story on Mother's Day, on the Mother's Day weekend. So you show kindness and respect to your mothers and your grandmothers, your aunts, all the women in your lives, okay? The mothers, you show kindness just as God would want you to do. All right, have a good weekend, rest of the weekend. Spoil your moms.